The air inside the debate hall in Atlanta was sharp with tension. The lighting was clinical, cameras perfectly positioned, the backdrop glowing in red and blue as dozens of media outlets streamed the live event. It was supposed to be just another panel policy, gender, leadership in Congress, but what unfolded would change careers and reputations forever. Karoline Leavitt, crisp in a navy suit, sat still under the studio lights, her eyes steady. She had prepared for this. She had answered the same questions before about being a young woman in politics, about proving herself every day, about facing the quiet judgment of those who never believed she belonged. "I don't have to be liked," she had said confidently. "Minutes earlier, I have to lead. But yes, there's pressure. If I speak too boldly, I'm called aggressive. If I'm too measured, I'm seen as weak. Women like me navigate an invisible line every day." The crowd responded with a respectful silence. Even some of her opponents nodded. Then came the voice that sliced through it. "Maybe, Jasmine." Crockett interrupted with a smirk, her arms folded casually. "If some people stopped playing the victim and started acting like leaders, they'd earn more respect." There was a pause, a long, uncomfortable one. The moderator shifted in his chair. Karoline didn't move. She just blinked once, slowly. Jasmine, sensing the tension, didn't stop. "Honestly, Karoline, people don't take you seriously. And it's not because you're a woman. It's because you walk around like the country owes you something. That's not leadership. That's entitlement." A few gasps from the audience. Someone coughed. The panelists on either side froze, watching for what would happen next. Karoline didn't flinch. She took a breath. "I don't need anyone to owe me anything," she replied, her voice calm, nearly too quiet for the microphone. "I work for the people who sent me here. I speak with conviction because I carry generations behind me. If that makes anyone uncomfortable, so be it." And then she stopped. The silence in the room grew even heavier. The moderator, visibly tense now, cleared his throat and attempted to shift topics. "Let's refocus on federal disaster relief," but the damage had been done. Online, the clip of Jasmine's remarks went viral within an hour. Social media exploded hashtag entitled Leavitt, hashtag victim politics, hashtag Crockett collapse, siege side, claiming their victory, their outrage, their receipts. Inside a private green room, as the post-debate noise filtered in from the hallway, Karoline sat alone. Her hands were clasped in front of her. She hadn't said much since leaving the stage. Her chief of staff entered quietly and set a glass of water beside her. She crossed a line. Her staffer whispered. Karoline looked up, finally, her expression unreadable. "I know." Second door opened. Her legal advisor, a tall man in a dark gray suit, entered and approached slowly. "We've reviewed the footage. Context matters, but it's actionable." "That wasn't a political jab," he said, handing her a sealed red folder. "It was character assassination, and it was planned." Karoline took the folder without opening it. She simply stared at the red seal for a long moment, then nodded. Across town, in a downtown hotel conference room, Jasmine was celebrating. Her team cheered the media coverage, the trending hashtags. She laughed as someone read tweets aloud, even reenacting the moment she'd interrupted Karoline. "Victim politics? Come on," she said, raising a glass. But her communications director looked worried. "Jazz," she said cautiously, "legal. Just flagged something. Karoline's team is reviewing your remarks under new defamation laws tied to live broadcasts." Jasmine waved it off. "Let them. That girl can't take the heat. She shouldn't be on the floor." Still, there was a flicker of something in her eyes, a hesitation. Brief, but real. Back at the debate center, Karoline stood in the hallway, her team silent behind her. She looked calm again, focused. Whatever was in that red folder it had shifted her entirely. The media gathered at the exit for quick interviews, flashes going off every second. Karoline didn't stop for questions. She simply walked toward the car waiting outside. But just before stepping in, she turned to her assistant. "Prepare a statement," she said. "We're not letting this slide." Inside the red folder were call logs, internal communications, and a strategy memo from Jasmine's campaign encouraging a direct hit on Karoline's reputation. And worse, signed by a political action group tied to a controversial donor. Karoline opened the folder in the back seat of the car as it pulled away. The final page was a draft lawsuit. Amount $80 million. And in bold underlined text at the bottom, defamation, emotional damages, professional sabotage. She didn't smile, but her grip on the folder tightened. The war had just begun. Jasmine Crockett's morning started like any other, with a coffee, a dozen unread texts, and a confident grin. She didn't know that by noon, her career would be spiraling into unknown territory. She scrolled through her feed, still basking. In the viral buzz from the previous night's debate, major outlets had picked up the exchange. Headlines screamed, "Crockett confronts Leavitt. Jasmine unleashed the most brutal debate moment of the year." She smirked. "That's how you win attention," she whispered to herself. But she didn't notice the shift happening. Quietly behind the headlines, legal analysts on cable news began dissecting her words. Social media threads turned technical, discussing the fine lines between opinion and defamation, especially during a live televised event. Then her phone rang. It was her chief of staff, Carla, her voice tight. "Jas. ... We have a problem." "What now?" "People crying about tone again?" "No," Carla said. Karoline's team just filed an intent to sue. Civil court. $80 million. Defamation? We just got served. Jasmine froze. "What? It's real? There's a red folder. Press is going to find out any minute." Outside the window of Jasmine's penthouse suite, the Atlanta skyline suddenly looked smaller. Back in Washington, D.C., Karoline Leavitt sat in a studio under harsh lights. Doing a live interview on State Line News, the anchor leaned forward. "Karoline, you didn't respond during the debate last night, but you filed a legal notice today. What changed?" Karoline didn't blink. "Last night was a clear, calculated attempt to damage my character in front of millions. I can take criticism. I welcome tough debate." What Jasmine did crossed into personal defamation and crossed legal lines. The anchor looked stunned. "You're seeking $80 million. Karoline nodded. "We're not just fighting for me. This is about setting boundaries in public discourse, especially when women leaders are targeted with personal, baseless attacks meant to humiliate. Rather than debate, cameras captured every word. Screens across the country lit up." Meanwhile, inside a tense strategy room, Jasmine's advisors scrambled. "We underestimated her," Carla muttered, pacing. "She played it quiet on stage and waited for us to celebrate. Now we're the ones off balance." "What do we do?" Jasmine asked. "You apologize. You issue a public statement, soften the tone. We can spin this." Jasmine laughed bitterly. "Apologize? For what? Calling out fake leadership?" "No," Carla snapped, "for how you did it. You mocked her. That clip's everywhere now, and it looks badass, especially next to her measured response. You look like the bully." The room went silent. Then came another knock. A staffer stepped in, whispering something. "CNN just broke it? It's all over cable now." Back on the East Coast, Leavitt met with her legal team. The red folder was now joined by thicker files, emails, debate planning documents, leaked texts from campaign interns. One memo caught everyone's attention. It was from Jasmine's media strategist 2 weeks before the debate. "Target Leavitt's victim complex. Paint her as fragile. Use tone to trigger her emotions. Press will love it if she cracks. Karoline." Tap the page with a pen. That's premeditated malice. Use it. By evening, news anchors were calling it the most dramatic legal escalation between sitting officials in recent years. Public opinion was shifting fast. Polls showed Jasmine's favorability dropping among independent voters by 14 points in less than 24 hours. In her dim hotel room, Jasmine stared at the TV, watching herself on repeat. In one clip, she was smirking. In the next, Karoline's calm face filled the screen, talking about dignity and resilience. It wasn't just a lawsuit. It was a narrative wherein Jasmine was losing. She turned the volume down, then her phone buzzed again. A text from her DC law advisor. You need to prepare. If this goes to court, discovery could reveal everything. Jasmine frowned. Everything. She remembered the emails, the video, rehearsals, the practice lines. The room felt colder now. Downstairs, media vans were already lined up outside the building. Reporters were waiting. And Karoline. She was already flying back to D.C. Her statement had gone viral. Supporters gathered outside Reagan Airport with signs that read, "Strength isn't silence, and we stand with Karoline." But she didn't smile as she stepped off the plane. She knew this fight wasn't over. It had only just begun. Rain fell in a soft drizzle over Washington, D.C., but inside the Capitol building, the storm was already raging. Karoline Leavitt entered the Judiciary Committee hearing room dressed in navy blue, her expression calm but unreadable. Photographers clicked furiously. Her lawsuit against Jasmine Crockett had gone national in just 2 days. Morning shows debated the ethics. Podcasts speculated on political fallout. The hashtag Leavitt vs. Crockett trended in all 50 states. The room buzzed as the session began, not because of the hearing itself, but because everyone knew Karoline would be questioned publicly for the first time since filing her case. On the opposite side of the city, Jasmine sat in a black sedan, staring out the window. Her phone had been buzzing nonstop with news alerts, but she had stopped reading them. Her legal team had advised her to remain quiet. No interviews. No press. Just silence. Silence wasn't her style. But now it was her shield. Back in the committee room, Senator David Rourke leaned into his mic. "Ms. Leavitt," he said, eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Your lawsuit against Representative Crockett has stirred serious public attention. Some say it's a political stunt. Others say it's a necessary boundary. What do you say?" Karoline didn't flinch. "I say words matter, Senator, especially when they're used to destroy someone's integrity on national television. This isn't about silencing criticism. It's about drawing the line between political debate and targeted character assassination." The room was dead silent. Reporters scribbled. Cameras zoomed in. One journalist whispered into his phone, "She's not backing down. She's doubling down." Meanwhile, in a secure office in the Capitol's lower wing, Jasmine's staff gathered. Around a whiteboard covered with arrows, deadlines, and damage control ideas. "We need a strategy," Carla said. "Right now, the press is running her version of the story. We stay silent any longer, and that version becomes truth." A younger aide chimed in nervously. "What about, a documentary-style interview?" Behind-the-scenes footage showed Jasmine's side humanizer. Carla shook her head. "Too risky. Anything on camera can be used in court." Then came a knock on the door. A man in a gray suit entered, holding a USB drive. "I'm from the opposition research team. You'll want to see this." He plugged the drive into the laptop. On screen appeared a hidden recording shot weeks before the debate. It showed a dim campaign prep room. Jasmine's senior media consultant stood before a whiteboard. Her face was clear. Her voice even clearer. "She's clean," the woman said. "No scandals, no affairs, nothing illegal." "So you have to make people feel like she's weak. Mock her voice. Dismiss her as emotionally fragile. Use gender if you have to. Turn her poise into a liability." Jasmine's blood ran cold. The recording cut off. Silence fell. "Is this real?" she asked. "It's real," the aide said. "And if Karoline's team gets it, they'll burn us alive in court." Jasmine stood slowly. Her hands were shaking. "She was right," she whispered. "It was personal." Meanwhile, Karoline sat in a quiet office above the committee floor. Her lawyer, Marla Strickland, leaned forward with a file. "This arrived from an anonymous source," she said. "You'll want to read it." Inside were pages of internal memos, strategy notes, and a transcript of the very recording Jasmine had just seen. Karoline's eyes narrowed. "Where did this come from?" she asked. "No idea, but it's admissible." Karoline didn't smile. Her eyes looked tired, like someone who had won the battle, but wasn't sure she wanted to win the war. "If I go forward with this," she said slowly, "I'll destroy her. Her career, her legacy, everything." Marla nodded. "She tried to destroy you first. You're just finishing what she started." Karoline stood and walked to the window. Below, protesters shouted from both sides. Some held signs saying "Justice for Jasmine," while others carried placards reading "Believe Leavitt." 2 women, 1 courtroom, and a political system watching closely. Suddenly, a new notification buzzed on every phone in the building. Breaking. White House may intervene as lawsuit escalates. President reportedly concerned over damage to party unity. Karoline turned from the window. The next step wouldn't be legal. It would be political. And the cost could be higher than anyone expected. Morning in Washington felt colder than usual, even though the sun was out. The city was split on sidewalks and newsrooms. In coffee shops, everyone was talking about only one thing: Karoline's lawsuit and what Jasmine would do next. Inside the federal courthouse, reporters formed a thick line outside the marble steps. A makeshift podium stood in front of a dozen cameras. There were whispers that Karoline would make a formal statement. She had remained silent after her committee appearance, but this morning something had changed. At 9 o'clock sharp, she stepped onto the platform with her attorney by her side. No makeup, no fancy styling, just a clean blazer and a face that looked calm but alert. "Thank you all for being here," she said, pausing as shutters clicked. "I filed this lawsuit not because I enjoy conflict, but because I refuse to allow personal slander to go unchallenged. The footage, the planning, the personal attacks, they were not politics. They were cruelty disguised as debate." A murmur passed through the crowd. "I believe in disagreement. I believe in strong voices. But I also believe in accountability," she continued. "That's why we're here. And that's why we'll see this through." She walked away without taking questions. Half a mile away, in a private suite inside the Capitol, Jasmine Crockett sat alone. Her phone buzzed every few seconds, missed calls, messages, alerts. She ignored them all. Her staff had tried to reach her, but she had locked the door. Night before, she had listened to the recording again, the leaked footage from her own consultant, mocking Karoline's composure and telling her to use gender as a weapon. That betrayal still stung. Worse, she had once signed off on the plan. She had forgotten that moment, or maybe convinced herself it hadn't mattered. But now the world knew. And everything had changed. A soft knock came. "Jasmine, it's Carla. Please, we need to talk. There's pressure coming from the top." Jasmine unlocked the door but didn't speak. Carla entered with a file in her hands. She placed it on the table. "That's from the White House communications team. They're asking you to release a statement or step down from your leadership role in the caucus. They think if you wait any longer, it could damage next year's election cycle." Jasmine swallowed hard. "They're making me choose. They're giving you a chance to walk away before it gets worse," Carla said softly. Jasmine stared at the papers. "I'm not the only one who's played dirty." "Why am I the only one being punished?" Carla's voice was quiet. Because this time someone hit back harder. The pressure wasn't just legal anymore. It had become a political storm. Donors were pulling back. PACs were distancing themselves. Advocacy groups that once celebrated Jasmine's rise were now calling for ethics accountability. Later, that evening, she appeared on a news program for the first time since the lawsuit began. The host was known for being tough, but fair. "I want to thank Congresswoman Crockett for joining us," the host began. "Let's get straight to it. Did you plan a personal attack against Karoline Leavitt before that debate?" Jasmine hesitated. The lights were hot, her throat dry. There was strategy involved, she admitted, her voice lower than usual, and some of that crossed a line, so the leaked video was real. "Yes," Jasmine said quietly, "I didn't say those words. But I heard them, and I didn't stop them. That was my mistake." There was a pause, and the lawsuit. "I'll fight it," she said, her eyes finally meeting the camera. "But not because I want revenge, because I want truth. Because this has become bigger than just two women trading insults. It's about how we lead, how we speak to each other, okay? And how we recover when we mess up." The interview ended. But the clip went viral within minutes. Some praised her for owning up to the mistake. Others said it was too late. The damage was done. Meanwhile, inside a quiet office in New York, Karoline watched the clip alone. Her phone buzzed. It was her attorney. She admitted it. "It's over," the voice said. She blinked first. Karoline didn't respond. She just turned the screen off, stood slowly, and looked out the window. There were no winners here. Not really. Only scars. And the trial hadn't even started yet. The courtroom was packed. Media vans lined the streets outside. Protesters and supporters from both camps filled the sidewalks chanting in defense of Karoline Leavitt. Others waving signs demanding Jasmine Crockett be held accountable. Inside, silence fell as Karoline entered with her legal team. She wore navy blue, her expression unreadable. She walked past reporters and political observers without glancing at anyone. On the other side, Jasmine sat at the defense table, stiff, pale but composed. Her eyes flicked once toward Karoline. Their gazes met briefly. No nods, no acknowledgement. The judge, a stern woman, known for her no-nonsense rulings in high-profile political trials, called the court to order. "Today, we begin initial proceedings in the defamation and political interference lawsuit brought by Ms. Karoline Leavitt against Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. The amount in question is $80 million. This court expects facts, not spectacle." The first exhibit was the debate footage. It played on a screen in the courtroom. Jasmine's smirk, her sarcastic tone. Karoline's composed reply. The moderator's discomfort. And then the private footage, the strategy meeting, secretly recorded, showing Jasmine's team mocking Karoline's personal history, scripting lines to bait her, laughing at how they could twist gender expectations. The courtroom was dead silent as it played. Jasmine didn't watch the screen. She stared down, at the table. When the footage ended, Karoline's lawyer stood. "We are not here because of politics. We are here because a human being was targeted with intentional malice in front of millions. We are here because someone believed they were untouchable. That the truth didn't matter as long as the headlines favored them." He paused. "But in this courtroom, truth matters." Outside, commentators went wild. Every network had a legal expert analyzing Karoline's chances. "She's doing this not just for herself," one anchor said. "She's rewriting the rules of public accountability." Others questioned the move. "Is this just a political stunt with a big price tag?" But the mood inside Jasmine's team was anything but confident. Her communications director resigned that morning. Some major sponsors withdrew their support. More than anything, the betrayal inside her own camp stung the most. One of her own aides had leaked the footage. That evening, Jasmine met privately with a senior party strategist. "We can't stop this storm," the strategist said bluntly. "But you have a choice. You can ride it out and risk total collapse, or you can control the exit." Jasmine blinked. "You want me to resign?" want you to survive." She didn't answer. At the same time, Karoline's team received a call from Capitol Hill. A senior committee chair had asked to meet with her, not about the lawsuit, but about stepping into a new role. "There's a vacancy opening up," the voice said. "People are watching how you handle this. You've earned more than just sympathy. You've earned trust." Karoline hung up and sat in silence. She hadn't expected this. Her plan was just to push back, to make a point. But now it was becoming something bigger. It wasn't just about reputation. It was about power. She opened her laptop and looked through the case file one more time. Every line Jasmine had crossed, every lie, every moment that she had stayed silent and regretted it. Meanwhile, that same night, Jasmine walked to the Lincoln Memorial. No cameras, no security, just one aide, trailing quietly behind. She looked up at the towering statue, lit in quiet glory. "I was so sure I was right," she said quietly. "You weren't wrong about the system," the aide said, "but you picked the wrong enemy." Jasmine laughed once, a bitter sound. "You know what the worst part is?" she asked. "What?" She didn't even have to yell back. "That's how she beat me." The aide didn't reply. Back at her apartment, Karoline received a message from a civil rights lawyer she deeply respected. It was only one sentence. "You didn't just defend yourself. You reminded us what strength looks like." Karoline stared at it for a long time. She had been called weak, fake, emotional, unqualified. But now the world was listening. And tomorrow the witness testimony would begin. The courtroom was colder than usual. The windows were sealed, but a storm outside was building. Wind whistled softly against the walls, like a warning. Inside, every seat was filled reporters, interns, political aides, even two former senators sitting silently in the back row. It was witness day, and the first to be called was Madison Cleary, a former intern from Jasmine Crockett's office. It's the same intern who had disappeared from the Hill 2 months before the debate scandal broke. Now she walked to the stand, nervous but determined. The oath was administered. She sat. The courtroom leaned forward. Karoline's lawyer approached slowly. "Ask Cleary, you worked inside Congresswoman Crockett's office?" "Yes," Madison said. "From January to August. Were you present during any meetings related to the strategy for the live debate with Karoline Leavitt?" Madison nodded. "I was asked to transcribe the prep sessions. Did anything unusual happen in those sessions?" She took a deep breath. "Yes, we were told. To frame Karoline as unqualified, we were told to bait her using gender politics to get under her skin." Gasps filled the courtroom. Jasmine's head dropped. "And who gave that instruction?" There was a pause. Then Madison said clearly, "Congresswoman Crockett." Jasmine's lawyer objected. "That's opinion. Witness has personal bias sustained," said the judge. "Day, the jury will disregard that last sentence." Day, but the damage was done. Next, Karoline took the stand. She looked directly at the jury. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't show anger, only clarity. "I joined that debate to talk about policy," she said. "But what I faced wasn't debate. It was a trap. I was ridiculed on national television, not because of anything I said, but because of who I am." Her voice cracked just once. "I didn't sue to silence anyone. I sued because the truth matters." Jasmine watched from the defense table, motionless. The final witness was a shock. A retired ethics advisor from the House brought in to speak about conduct. "Pre-planned character attacks," he explained, "violate not just the spirit of debate, but the ethical standards outlined by congressional rules. When coordinated by sitting lawmakers, they can also border on abuse of office." The jury looked at Jasmine differently after that. By the end of the day, even some of her allies had stopped meeting her eyes. That night, the story dominated every news program. CNN aired exclusive footage of Jasmine's team laughing behind closed doors. Fox News ran panel discussions on political accountability. Al Jazeera ran a profile on Karoline's rise from local politics to national stage. The White House, for the first time, issued a statement. We support open debate. We also support integrity. We will not comment on active legal matters, but we believe in consequences when public trust is breached. Behind closed doors, Democratic leadership was in panic mode. This is a wildfire, one strategist whispered. And Jasmine won't be able to put it out. Late into the night, Jasmine received a message on her secure line. This was from an old colleague, someone she hadn't spoken to in months. You still have a way out. But it means giving up something big. She didn't respond. Instead, she looked through the court transcripts again. Karoline's words, Madison's testimony. Her own emails now entered as evidence. Her hands trembled. Suddenly, there was a knock at her apartment door. It was Carla, her former chief of staff, holding a brown envelope. I'm not supposed to be here, Carla said quietly, but you need to see this. Inside the envelope was a deposition whistleblower report from someone inside the debate commission. It confirmed that certain moderators had received background material targeting Karoline, including personal stories meant to throw her off. Jasmine froze. She had assumed Karoline leaked that herself, but it hadn't been her at all. It was internal sabotage. Why are you giving me this? Jasmine asked. Carla hesitated. Because if you're going down, should at least know who set the fire. The world saw the lawsuit as personal as a scandal. But now Jasmine saw something else. She wasn't just a villain in this story, she was a pawn. And someone far above her had moved the pieces. She looked out the window into the storm. Tomorrow was closing arguments. And she finally knew what she had to say. The final day arrived with heavy skies. Thunder rolled in the distance as crowds gathered outside the courthouse, pressing against metal barricades. Protesters, reporters, and supporters for both women shouted over each other, their signs and chants merging into a storm of sound. Inside, the courtroom buzzed with tension. Karoline Leavitt sat in silence, her legal team calm but alert. She wore dark blue sharp, composed and unfazed. Jasmine Crockett entered a few minutes later, alone. No entourage, no publicist. Advisors, just her. The room stilled. As the judge entered and called the session to order, the atmosphere turned electric. Closing arguments were about to begin. Karoline's attorney stood first. He didn't speak with anger. He spoke with precision. This case was never about silencing political debate. It was about restoring the dignity of it. My client, Karoline Leavitt, was publicly ridiculed, insulted, and set up during a debate intended to educate the public. That is not free speech. That is defamation, coordinated and premeditated. He pointed to the screen behind him, where clips from the debate played again. Jasmine's smirk, her words, the audience laughter. $80 million, he continued, isn't just a number. It's a statement. That truth matters. That integrity can't be destroyed without cost. Then it was Jasmine's turn. She rose slowly and approached the center of the room, not with fire, but with a strange stillness in her eyes. I made a mistake, she began. Gasps echoed. I said things on that stage that were personal, uncalled for, and unfair. I let ambition speak louder than principle. And yes, I hurt someone who didn't deserve it. Even Karoline shifted in her seat. But I also need to tell you something, Jasmine added. There are people in this game, powerful people who feed off conflict, who push us to go low because it drives ratings, donations, clicks. They whispered in my ear. They gave me files. They told me how to land the blow. She looked directly at the jury. I threw the punch. But someone else loaded the gloves. The courtroom was silent. For the first time, she didn't sound like a politician. She sounded like someone breaking free of something bigger. As she stepped back to her seat, her lawyer whispered, You just surrendered the case. I know, Jasmine replied. Jury took 2 hours to deliberate. When they returned, the verdict was unanimous. Karoline Leavitt had won. The courtroom didn't explode, exhaled, slowly, as if everyone had been holding their breath for a week. The judge awarded Karoline $15 million in damage, is less than the $80 million requested, but still historic. One of the largest defamation settlements in U.S. political history. Jasmine closed her eyes as the judgment was read. No tears, no reaction, just quiet. Karoline looked straight ahead, unmoving. She wasn't celebrating. She knew this wasn't victory, it was survival. Outside, the press lost control. Cameras clicked. Microphones were shoved into faces. TikTok lives, YouTube streams, and CNN choppers captured every frame. Karoline gave no statement. But Jasmine did. Standing on the courthouse steps, she faced the world one last time. "I don't ask for forgiveness," she said. "I ask for attention. Because what happened here isn't just about me or Karoline. It's about how the system feeds off destruction. Today, I take responsibility. Tomorrow, I fight to clean up the mess behind the curtain." The clip went viral. Hours later, Karoline appeared in an exclusive interview. The anchor leaned in. "You think Jasmine's career is over?" Karoline thought for a moment. "Oh," she said, "she's just seen the machine from the inside." That changes you. That night, in a closed-door meeting, high-level media producers argued over whether to leak emails revealing that a major cable network fed Jasmine the debate script. One senior executive shouted, "If that gets out, we all go down." By morning, both women were trending across every platform. One was a symbol of resilience. The other, a warning of how ambition and manipulation can collide in the public eye. But both had become more than just players. They had become symbols in a larger war between truth and narrative, politics and power, silence and consequence. And somewhere, far from the cameras, someone in a private office poured a glass of whiskey and made a call. Move to phase 2. They're both distracted now, because this wasn't just a debate. It was the first battle in something bigger.